Hey guys, welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast YouTube channel. My name is Samaria and I'm joined by my best friend and co-host Miyosha. And today we're reviewing Married at First Sight season 15, episode 13. All right.
Mhm.
But before we do, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, guys. We're almost at our goal of 1,000. So please help us to get there. And we also have new podcast episodes every Friday available on all podcast platforms. So make sure you check us out there if you like our vibe. All right. So we're going to start things off with Sasha and Nate.
Ooh, okay. Nate. So when they first sat down, I'm just gonna jump to where they were with Pastor Cal.
Yes.
And he was basically like, all right, so I've been seeing what y'all been up to.
Yep.
And Nate goes, so Pastor Cal, you mean to tell me you ain't a freak?
I was like, not him asking the pastor.
Not the pastor, Nate. Come on.
That was funny to me.
It was hilarious. But yeah, so I will say I'm still feeling confident about Stasha and Nate.
Okay.
The only things that are somewhat concerning me is one, there still seems to be this pressure for him to say, I love you.
Yeah.
And I guess they do dig a little bit deeper, and he may realize that it's because he's afraid of getting hurt. He said that he stopped himself a few times from saying it. I don't know. I go back and forth between, okay, yeah, you maybe should be feeling yourself opening up to being in love, but I don't necessarily know that it needs to be this big thing of like, oh, well, she said it and he hasn't. I don't know.
Mm.
I wish that that dynamic just wasn't there. And Stasha still seems to need those words for her to feel comfortable. Um,
Right.
I just don't, which I understand, but I don't want him to be between a rock and a hard place and just say it just to make her happy, which he doesn't seem like he's going to do that, because he still hasn't said it, I
Mhm.
guess.
I
But yeah,
think
go
I think it's
ahead.
a big deal because it's a big deal to Stasha, which because they're the two people involved in the relationship, that means it is a big deal.
Mhm.
But I would agree with you. I don't think he's the type to just say it, and I think maybe the few times that he stopped himself were probably because of that. Maybe like
Mhm.
feeling like, oh, someone has said it to me, now I have to say it back. So I think he should take his time and figure that out. I will say though, because we were, I don't want to say hard on Sasha because I don't think we were hard on her, but she was very quiet during the "I love you" conversation, and I feel like that's an improvement from last time because last time I feel like she was very like you could sense and feel the anxiety about it, but this time she seemed to like sit back and just listen and observe. Like she perked up when they started talking about it, but she
Oh,
wasn't like as aggressive as she was in the past with it.
her eyes were saying a lot though, just like her energy. So she wasn't saying anything, but it was almost like she was waiting on the edge of her seat, and so was I, like, girl.
It was.
She was so hype on the inside about it, but she did hold it together.
Mhm.
And then what did you think about this whole Stasha cheated 10 years ago and him feeling a way about it?
Okay, so 10 years ago, she was 27. Well, she said 10 plus. So I just want to know what age, because, like, if you cheated at 27, 28, that's kind of a big, that's kind of a big deal. But if it
So
was
it's okay
like,
to cheat at 21? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
think so. Like, I don't think it's okay, but I think it would be easier to give grace in that type of situation than, okay, you were almost 30 and you cheated. But it got his
Yeah,
attention for sure.
yeah, and I get it because I think what he was trying to say is that I view Sasha in a certain way, the way she
Yeah.
carries herself, I look up to her, I'm proud of her, she's all these great things. So to hear that, it's
Yeah.
just such the opposite of how she's presenting herself. But
Hmm.
then again, I hear it from the other side where it's like, okay, well, that was 10 years ago. People
Yeah.
can change. But you're right. If it was, call it 10 years, she would have been 27, 28.
Hmm.
girl, you pushing 30 out here playing these games. And then
Yes.
what were the circumstances? So when he mentioned to, was it her friend and sister, that he doesn't have the context of exactly what happened. Was it
Yeah.
a retaliation cheat, or was it you had a work husband? Like what kind of cheating situation was this?
But I think it was good because if he was putting her on a pedestal, then at least now he knows not to do that. Because I feel like in permanent relationships, you gonna learn that at some point, not to put the other person on a pedestal. So at least he's learning it right now. That's how I
Listen,
felt. And
man
yeah.
will disappoint you every time.
Okay. And she says she's not that person anymore. So I would take her word for it. But also I'm not the
Mhm.
one in the marriage with her. I can see him taking her word for it because she does seem to be in a different place now where she's like, I'm actively seeking marriage. I want this and I want that. So hopefully when she said 10 plus years, it was like maybe like 18 years ago or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, and she didn't even have to say anything. So, I mean,
Yeah.
no one wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
And it shows maybe that she is taking this process very serious and that, well, let me just go ahead and say something. If we are together, I don't want to have to hold on to this for forever.
And it wasn't, she didn't even present it as if it was some type of like secret that she was hiding. It was just like, oh no, I have. Like
I know.
it was so like blunt, maybe. So it wasn't like, oh, a few years ago. You remember when Kristen told Mitch that she had been engaged before? Like she didn't
Mhm.
make a big deal out of it. So that makes me believe it's not a big deal to her anymore. And that really is behind her. But who knows?
Mhm.
If this were Nate, we might be saying something different. So
I did hear a few people saying that on the internet that if it were reversed,
yeah.
but I also think it's just because the vibe that we had from Nate up front,
We'll
just
be
with the
like, yep, he sure did. I
yeah,
believe
the
it.
bootleg purses, and then him bringing that friend girl around to the wedding. Their whole energy was off. There's
Yeah.
some questions there. So yeah, it's a double standard, but whatever.
She said that, not me. All right, so let's get Morgan and Ben out of the way. First of
Girl,
all, why is she so pressed? Can you zoom in on this? It says here, this is my license. You can Google this. Okay, girl. Next time, don't lie on your application. Okay, like
nobody cares if you're a nurse.
nobody
And if
cares.
anything, if I find myself in California, you the nurse I'm probably going to avoid.
At this point, we don't care if you're a nurse, a clown. We don't care what you are. What you've shown us is that you're not the nicest person. That's what we care about. I don't care where
Yeah,
you make your money.
and for her to be like, "Oh, I'm just so tired of being sad." Are you? Really?
You sure? You seem to like it there.
Sad she should have said, I'm so tired of being mad, because that's
Mhm.
what she's been. You ain't been
Yeah.
sad about nothing.
Yeah, and you could tell where she checked out because all these weeks later, it's been over a month of being married, and all these weeks later, the only thing that was really bothering her was her name being out there as not a nurse. Like the fact that all those weeks ago that thing happened and all these weeks later that's still the thing that she's bringing up, it just goes to show you that she never moved forward from that place and was just punishing this guy. What did you think
No.
about their sit down with Dr. Pepper?
The whole thing is disappointing. The lack of accountability.
Mm,
I'm glad to see that they're coming to an end, but I mean, I feel for anyone who signs up for this show and is paired with someone like her, or it's just a bad match, or there's just some extreme behavior,
yeah.
like she's possessed. So just the lack of accountability. I feel like once again, Ben was falling on his sword. I think it's gonna work out better for him in the long run because there'll be a lot of growth on his part. It's just coming from her, there's nothing, no accountability, so it's just like, okay, Ben, move on. Keep that to yourself. She doesn't deserve to hear your level of vulnerability anymore.
I enjoyed Ben this episode because I
Mm,
feel like he really kept the main thing the main thing. And I think he was giving off a little bit unbothered by her. In previous
Oh, yeah.
episodes, I feel like he's been so bothered, you know.
Yeah.
In this episode, it's like, okay, it doesn't matter what he said. I mean, what she said. I want a divorce too for different reasons because I'm my focus right now. I'm not worried about her and what she thinks I did wrong. He ain't trying to apologize again. Thank God. So
Mhm.
I really appreciated that he's very much moved on from that. And even later on in the episode, he's like, you know, she's going to have to forgive and she's going to have to move forward. But essentially, that has nothing to do with me. And so I like that he's at least at that point now, and not in a point where he's trying to be in her good graces. And hopefully, somebody gets her together at the reunion show.
Yeah, the only thing I wish though is that he wouldn't count this as a divorce. I wouldn't even count this as a marriage. Like when he was like, "Oh, I'm the first person in my family to get divorced." So there's still a lot of pressure I think that he's going to have to work through
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of expectations and dealing with his family. Like when he brought up, like, "Oh, when my dad finds this out," I just felt so bad for him
I did too.
because I just want him to release that and not carry that with him because this is, not a marriage. I would not count this. Hopefully, can they count it as an annulment?
There was, so a few seasons ago, there was a lady who got an annulment. So I think
Yeah,
that's what he should do if he's so worried about it being, because I wouldn't count it either.
you know, this
So
y'all had maybe 1 solid day
they
together.
they had a wedding party. Like they had they didn't have a marriage, they had a party. That's what they had. So yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully he's in a better place. But I did appreciate him more this episode. I think he talked about what was important to him and is more
mhm,
focused on him than he is her. And I'm so
yeah,
happy that she won't be on our screens anymore. I'm sad that she'll have to be at the reunion, but I am very hopeful that some accountability, because the experts, whenever they say stuff, they say, oh, they've kept us up to date on. So they're clearly not seeing footage. And I think maybe we'll hear a little bit more once they have seen footage. I hope.
girl, I hope they haven't seen it. If they have seen
Hmm.
what we have seen and we find out that they still didn't say or do more than what they did,
Yeah,
that's a problem.
it's a huge problem.
I feel for anybody really who would sign up for this process going forward because Ben done been through it.
He has. Poor Ben. Poor Ben. But okay. So next we have Lindy and Miguel, who I didn't see too much this episode with them, but it seems like next week's episode is going to be a lot for them, and
Mhm.
I think it'll be interesting. But I thought it was funny when they went to do axe throwing, and he he said, "I can't be a man if I can't throw an axe." And I was cracking up. I'm actually going next weekend, and so I was like,
Mhm.
"Let me not laugh too hard because I might not be able to throw an axe either." But I did think that was funny, and I like that he celebrated her winning because she was on it. She
Yeah.
was a little too on it. He might need to be scared if last week's episode was this week's episode and they did the axe throwing in that same time period. I would be scared of Lindy. It was just too good.
Listen, that and how much she brags about how you haven't seen the worst of her behavior.
Yeah.
I don't know, every time they pan to him whenever she's talking about that side of her, it's just giving me episode of Snapped or something, I don't know.
Yeah. And I feel like he knows more about her than we do. So I'm like, oh, she said a few curse words when he didn't do the insurance, whatever. But seeing like next week's preview and also like maybe realizing, okay, he's living with her, so he's probably seeing a little bit more questionable behavior. I'm like, there's a huge problem, I think, there.
Yeah, I do think that there is more there, and I saw someone else call out that they think that they kinda have a pact to where we're gonna keep it together on camera because
Yeah.
whether we're together or not, we wanna come out on the other side of this with some respect about ourselves, we're not gonna show it all, so I do think that well, now I see it, like, I think that there's more going on, but for whatever reason,
Yeah.
they're agreeing to try to hold it together when the cameras are rolling.
I can see
Or
that,
are
and I can see Miguel being the one who's that way. Because even when
Mhm.
they've been on camera and he said something, just the way that he handles it is like it's not making a scene. It's hey, that's unacceptable to me. I would like us to not do that. You know, like the way
Mhm.
that he handles it. So I think that's a possibility. But if that's the type of person he is, then they really put him with a wild card because she's clearly not that way.
Yeah, I wrote down that I feel like both of them, like a lot of their conversations are caught up in the what if.
Hmm.
And I wish they would spend more of that time talking about I don't want to say real issues, but making sure that they're aligned on real things today. We don't see a whole lot of those conversations. Like we've seen a little bit, but I'm like, man, y'all talk so much about, well, we don't know what the future is, and I can't commit. And well, why
Yeah.
are you talking about decision day? Why don't y'all talk about like real timeline as far as having children? Since clearly Lindy, like he seems to be like, oh, I want a baby quickly.
Hmm.
And she's like, whoa, 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 I'm not trying to be up all night.
I
So
didn't
like
even like the practice baby. What do you mean a real human? Yeah.
so he's 35, going on 36. So like that would be a real thing that they could talk through, work through today, not, oh well, I don't know, I can't commit to forever. And well, why are you acting like you want to throw in the towel already? It sounds like a threat. It's like, can y'all get focused,
Y'all
please?
think about today. But I kind of am like that where I'm always in the future, but I don't think I'm doing so negatively like, oh, this is well, sometimes I am like, oh, this isn't gonna work because XYZ.
Mhm.
But Pastor Cal said something that I thought was really cool. He said, don't forecast doom on your relationship. And I'm like, I think Miguel needed to hear that because that's
Mhm.
exactly what he does. Not without reason, though. I think he does see behaviors that are questionable to him. And
Mhm.
in the present, he just needs to make sure they're addressed so that there isn't doom in the future. But yeah, I think he is very much forecasting doom, not without reason, but still. And I think it's not beneficial. Like you said, they're very much in the hypothetical instead of the reality of now.
And I think he's also more comfortable with the uncertainty. So,
Hmm.
like, the whole, like, well, I don't know
Yeah.
if we're gonna be together. Like, he seems to be very comfortable with it may last forever, it may not.
Yeah.
Versus with her, that seems to cause her a lot of anxiety, and to be upset. She doesn't even want to talk about it.
Mhm.
And so I think both of them just need to find that balance
Yeah.
and really just refocus, because I'm sure there's a whole list of things that y'all could be talking about as
Yeah.
far as like her work schedule, the student loans that need to be paid back, even though she want to work part time. Like,
Yeah. I I would agree with you. I think with Miguel, he said something about, "Oh, I wouldn't want to be in a loveless marriage," and then that concerns me because I think if you guys did get to that point, like Lindy was saying, maybe try to figure it out. And it seems like if he gets to that point or is getting close to that point, then he's just gonna tap out. So I do
right.
think he has to work on just the commitment aspect of it a lot more. And I think when it comes to that issue of them in the future, he probably doesn't need to talk to Lindy about it, at least not at that level. Like if he's having any concerns, he needs to find a friend, like because she can't handle it, and that's not a
Mhm.
bad thing, maybe, but she clearly can't handle it. So he needs to go and talk it out with somebody and see if a conversation is even necessary with her. You know?
Yeah, because that worry is always there
Yeah.
with any relationship, even if you're 25 years in. Well, yeah, we don't know if 20 years will have another 20 years. Like that whole scenario of us falling out of love is always
A
there. So it's like, well, what's the point of talking about it if you haven't reached
Yeah.
like a wall to where it's like, oh, this is a serious conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah. Y'all just fell in love. Also, instead of approaching it that way, maybe take a more productive approach, which is saying, okay, how do we prevent ourselves from getting to that? And then going, like trying to figure out how to prevent it as opposed to how to react to it when it happens.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What did you think about Pastor Kyle's advice to them? the whole conversation around, oh, well, she says she's normally at a 4.5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
She's only been at a 10 twice in her life.
Mm-hmm.
This is her norm. And
Yeah.
then I think he asked, like, well, can Miguel live with her norm? What did you think about that whole?
First, first of all, I don't think she's been to a 10 twice in her life. I think it's probably been more because nobody, like, you reduce the numbers to make yourself look
He's
good.
like, she wasn't gonna say 10 times. She's like, two.
Right. Like, and her 10 isn't Miguel's 10. Like, her 4.5 seems like it's more of his 10. So I don't think that's gonna work. Even if this is her norm, he seems very concerned about it getting any worse than what it is now. So I think she's already at his 10. So
Yeah.
I would tread lightly with that advice.
And the frequency too. And then what is it over?
Yeah.
And then, so far I don't feel like they've really been in high stress situation. Like, okay, what's high stressed about this is the condensed amount of time and y'all are strangers. But when I think of high stress in like a marriage, I'm thinking, oh, you're like sleep deprived and you just had your first baby.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh, my spouse has suffered this big medical event or someone's lost their job. Like
Mm-hmm.
those are the type of high stress situations I think of in marriage. So I'm just like, girl, if you're so frantic and this is how you're acting now,
Yeah.
then when those real high stress situations happen, then are you at a 10 or are you at a
Yeah.
15?
She's at a 4.5 for things that can be handled with maybe longer conversations, a little bit more patience, and so things that can't be controlled. I
Yeah.
think would really, yeah, and I think he's observing that, and he's because it's not all the time. I think he's allowing himself to be in love and grow, but I definitely think he's peaking it. Like he's peeping it. Did I say peak? I think he's peeping it for sure.
Yeah. I will say one thing, and this kind of comes up again with
Yeah.
Mitch, is I feel like when people on this show have like presented certain negative characteristics,
Hmm.
I feel like one thing or one area where the experts kind of lack is coaching them to work on those things,
Yeah.
not just expecting the other person, well, you better take them like they are. Um, yeah, I just wish that there was more coaching on, okay, well, long term, if you know, like, okay, I have an anger issue or
Yeah.
I go from 0 to 10, what are some things that can be put in place to help me through this? Because it's not just with this relationship, it's
Yeah.
just like your life in general, as well as I'm pretty sure you don't go to work acting like that. So you
Well,
need
the
to
friend
control it.
the friend he sat down with was her work friend, and she was saying like, which she wasn't the most helpful person. Anytime Miguel
Mhm.
brought up something negative, she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I definitely see that. Yeah, when we're at work, she does it too. So yeah, that's definitely just her." I'm like, girl, are you supposed to be helping, or like, are you here to throw your friend under the bus? I don't understand, but
I mean, he said, "Give me all the dirt on her."
girl, but as a friend, if somebody came to you and said, "Mio should give me all the dirt on Samaria," that dirt is gonna be really clean. I know it. So, but I mean, I guess at least she was being honest about
Yeah.
it. Yeah. All right. So Alexis and Justin, I guess. Before we say anything about them, I do want to add. I do want to say that Alexis looked absolutely stunning.
Oh
Listen, that
yeah.
makeup was perfection. Like,
Yeah,
she
she's
could not.
beautiful and she's
Yes.
serving body yaddy yaddy every
Yes.
episode. So
So shout out to Alexis for that. All right, now into the issues.
speaking of Alexis,
Mhm.
yes, I perk up every time I see Devon. I'm gonna let you go first.
Twitter was saying that. Twitter was like, "Oh, why is she looking at him like that?" But I didn't think anything of it until I read it on Twitter. I think maybe she was starstruck. Who knows?
Maybe she was starstruck, but there was definitely a difference in energy. Like
Mhm.
I thought back to the scenes and when he was on screen with her, like when she was with him or when he met up with them at the end, she just seemed more open, more light.
Yeah.
And then, the scenes with Justin by herself or like with the group, she seems utterly annoyed every time he opens his mouth.
Yeah.
So maybe they're there probably wasn't anything else going on there. He is a nice looking guy, but
Yeah.
there was a definite difference in energy with her.
Hmm.
It was so obvious.
When they did their couples cam, the diary cam, they seemed to be getting along well, though, she and Justin at the beach. But okay. So Justin goes at the beginning of the episode to meet up with Alexis's friend Will. He acknowledges like his imperfections and how he wants to work on his tone. But I feel like Will didn't really say anything new. Like,
If anything, I feel like he was misleading because what I wrote down was that he kept saying how much oh, you're exactly what she wants, and she's so into this. So then I'm like, okay, either is she lying to you, or are you just lying for her?
mm-hmm.
Or you're just clueless as to what's going on. Obviously, he hasn't seen the footage,
Yeah.
but I feel like that was misleading and maybe giving Justin some breadcrumbs that he does not need, because that's so the opposite of what we're seeing so far.
Do you think Justin took those breadcrumbs, or do you think he's still kind of where he was last episode, where he's hesitant?
I don't think he took them,
Yeah.
but in the moment, I was just thinking like, why are you saying this? No.
Yeah. You're like misleading him, or
Yeah, and so yeah, at at the most, yeah, it was not helpful at all.
okay.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right. But I did like their sit down with Devon. I
Mhm.
I think he did a very good job. That was the only couple he met with one on one, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think he did a good job with what was happening there, and just getting to the bottom of the issue, where it's like it's not just about the club, it's not just about her in this particular location, but in some ways that location doesn't help. And so he asked her to just get to the bottom of what that represents, like how she feels in the marriage. And she said, she feels repressed. And then he asked her, what would your marriage need to look like for you to not feel repressed? And I really like that. I thought he did a good job.
So I think the way he went about the exercise, great.
Yeah.
I think that would all be great if I didn't know what I knew about Alexis.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I think one of the reasons why Alexis was more open in the dialogue with him was because Devon didn't come for her neck the way
yeah.
that
Dr.
Dr.
P.
Pia did. And I think she appreciated Devon also being focused on certain things going on with Justin, which I think we've all agreed like there's something there.
Mhm.
The only thing I guess I just was just like, it's because I know what I've seen about Alexis. I understand that she feels free at the club and all that. But in this particular instance, like when he mentioned about, oh, well, today it's the club, then it's the church, then it's the spa or
Everything
whatever,
else, yeah.
I don't necessarily make that connection
Mhm.
only because of what I've seen so far. And the club is a different place
Yeah,
than those other
in the
places,
spa.
as well as it's still not addressing just not where she's going, but the lack of one-on-one time
Yeah,
with her spouse. So I
yeah.
agree with all of the advice. I like the way that he went about doing it. I just think that she appreciated the accountability that was also there for Justin. And as far as her being stifled or her feeling like he's controlling, I still not have not gotten that vibe.
So
But
that's the one thing that I disagreed with. It seems like Justin walked out saying, I found out that I'm controlling a bit. And I was like, but you're not. And
mm-mm,
having this insecurity, which I'm glad that he was able to uncover it, having this insecurity that, with her going, that you're gonna lose her, uh, isn't because you're controlling. Or you wanting to spend more time with her in your home as opposed to out isn't controlling. And so I think like there was a jump that was made from, okay, I'm insecure that she's going to the club all the time, to I'm controlling. Because I think his insecurity in this situation is valid. I'm not saying with all married people it's valid, but in this situation where she's not into you, and
mm-hmm.
now you're scared. Okay, the more she goes out, the less into me she'll be, but then she'll also find somebody else she's interested in. Yes, that's an insecurity. Yes, that needs to be dealt with. But in a lot of ways, I think it's valid. And I didn't make that jump to him being controlling just because he wants her to stay at home.
On top of the fact, this is a great segue into the another area of maybe insecurity is the lack of intimacy.
Mm,
So when
yeah.
Devon was basically like, okay, well, you just need to have more confidence in
Hmm.
that area. I just felt like Alexis wasn't being genuine about what is driving her to like have this lack of desire or intimacy for
Hmm.
him. Now I'm not, I didn't expect her to be an open book about it because that was their first session together.
Yeah.
But this whole, oh, well, I just want you to be more dominant and more this and more
Hmm.
that. It's like, girl, he says that he's tried. You've said that he's
Yeah.
tried, but you're not really giving him the green light.
Also, he strikes me as, right, because we don't know these people, but he strikes me as a bit of a gentleman. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think if she's not giving off signs that that's something that she wants, I can't see him trying to dominate. You remember like Michael and Jasmina. This was kind of the same theme last year with
Mm-hmm.
them because she's like, "Oh, I need him to, step up and put in the effort." And he's like, "If I'm not getting those vibes from you, like I don't it feels to a gentleman like I'm forcing myself, like it's just not the ideal situation."
And even if you're not a gentleman, I'm sorry, y'all just met. So y'all just met, you're on a TV show.
Yeah.
No one wants to be perceived as being overly forward or making people feel uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So I think you have to take that into account.
Yeah.
I just feel like what Alexis is saying just isn't adding up.
Mhm.
They were all over each other at the honeymoon.
Mhm.
They get back. Obviously, real life happens, but I don't know. I just feel like it just wasn't genuine, her response
Yeah.
in that whole dialogue about intimacy. I think Justin is very much into her.
Mhm.
I don't think it's that he's not being dominant or confident
Yeah.
enough. I think he's getting the vibe from her that, hey, I'm just not that into you.
Mhm.
And he doesn't want to force it
Yeah. But
because he don't want it.
I do think that that vibe that he's getting from her has messed with his confidence a little bit. But
Mhm.
I do agree that him not being dominant isn't a thing of confidence. It's a thing of you really don't want to. And so, no, I'm not gonna just come here and be like, oh, let me take it. Like, no, that just seems aggressive. And I I'm with Justin on that. But I do like that in the session, she's like, oh, I'm so proud of you. I liked it, but then on the other side, like underneath it, I'm like, it's her highlighting his flaws and kind of presenting as the superior one when it comes to emotional
Mhm.
intelligence. And now she's
Mhm.
like patting him on the back, like, hey, good job, like you would do a child. But I was trying not to think that negatively and appreciated that she was at least like smiling and they were like at least touching each other. And while that didn't follow up through all the episode, at the very end when they were doing their their camera, their diary thing, confessional, I can never get the name right, but when they were doing that, it reminded me of them at the honeymoon doing the same thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's get to the group meeting. How about that?
Mhm. Oh,
So
you wanna do Kristen and Mitch and then the group meeting?
no, because I feel like the group meeting really just covered the most notes that I have on that is just like Alexis and Justin and then Kristen and Mitch. So I figured we could cover the Alexis and Justin part now and then do
Okay.
the Mitch one later. Yeah.
Okay.
So they talked about decision day during the group meeting.
Mhm.
And Justin was saying, so Justin's like, I'm not sure, which thankfully he's finally at that place where he's like, okay, something
Mhm.
else is going on here. So he's like, I'm not sure. And she says, I feel like if you're questioning it, like if you're questioning whether I'm for you or not, choose whatever else. Don't choose me. And I'm like, girl, don't act like you're not the reason he's questioning. Like, come on. So yeah, I was a little disappointed about that and how she was looking at him and how she was a little bit like cold again when they were sitting down.
Yeah, well, every time he opens his mouth, and it's every time they're in these group settings,
Mhm.
she always has this, "Oh, I'm gonna take a backseat approach and let Justin do all the talking, and Imma sit here and make all these facial expressions and be
Yeah,
doing the most." But it's like, okay, if you see yourself as this more superior, emotionally intelligent person, then why
yeah.
aren't you the one speaking on behalf of you all as a couple, knowing at this point that maybe him communicating about these types of things isn't his
Yeah,
strong suit. So why aren't you stepping up and saying more? It's almost like I just feel like she kind of sets him up every time. And I wish he would just kind of sit there and not say much and let her take the
like,
lead.
"Go ahead." Yeah.
Yeah, like, since the last few times she's claimed she hasn't had much to say,
Mhm.
but yeah, so it was just such a hard switch, and then once the other couples were kinda having their tiffs,
Yeah.
that's when they kinda got close again, and she was like, like, all, like, close to him, and it's all so strange.
She sees him as, and I'm sure most spouses see each other like this, but like your gossip buddy. Like, like there's some tea and you can't wait to tell
You're
your
like, "Ooh,
significant
did you
other,
see that?"
like, ooh, wait till I tell him about this. That's kind of that's kind of what it gives up. So I think she enjoys him and his perspective on other people, but I don't think she wants to be married to him. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm glad that he articulated what he did about decision day. And when she said, which I understand it's a little bit unfair, seeing that we're in this process. No, it's a lot of bit unfair because the process allows you to make a decision after 8 weeks. So if he is going in, and I don't think he went into it like this, but if at this point he's like, okay, there is a decision to be made, then why are you making it seem like it's a negative thing? He knows what he signed up for. You signed up for
Mhm,
the same thing. So if you don't like it, okay, then you don't choose to be married to me at decision day, if you're having a problem
mhm.
with this. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
he's
think,
the only one, being honest and
yeah.
transparent, really.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think she always like takes what he's saying and makes it negative, but there's nothing negative about someone
Mm-mm.
getting married at first sight where he can make a decision at 8 weeks and saying, okay, I have a decision to make, like,
Especially since she just told him last week, or we don't know how many days are in between the
yeah.
filming, basically like, "Yeah, good luck to you. I don't wanna be married to you."
I understand that you might not be the person for me, but I know that I am the perfect woman for someone out there. Like, girl, that was just you in 4K a few days ago. So what do you mean? Well, if you're trying to make a decision that we're allowed to make, then choose something else. Don't choose me. Girl, don't use this gymnastics to try to get yourself out of it and have him say no, please. So
Mhm.
yeah, and then Devon came back out and, and she did perk up again. And I like that he asked, like, okay, what could you do? Because it was so clear how put off she was, you know? And
Mhm.
so he's like, he got on Justin a little bit again, which I appreciated because I think Justin's gonna need that once he divorces Alexis. But he says, you don't have to do you don't have to do this with Alexis now, but life is asking you to step up. And so if you don't do it
Mhm.
now, then you won't be able to do it with the next thing and the next thing. And I think that's really good advice for Justin after he says no on decision day, hopefully.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
She said that, "Oh, yeah, I could be more open." Girl,
Then be it.
she don't want that man.
Yeah, he specifically said that that's a turn off for him. Like her not wanting to is a turn off for him, as it should be. Like if somebody
Yeah.
doesn't want you, why would that turn you on? Unless that's something that she's used to, like men maybe chasing her so much that I don't know. I don't want to create a scenario that isn't truth, but yeah. That's it for them that I have. Like, do you have anything else?
That's it.
All right, well, let's go to Kristen and Mitch. I have a lot on them this week.
Mm, girl, well, I'll just summarize, I guess, how I feel.
Okay.
I was seeing that Mitch was making some progress, being vulnerable. But after this episode, hearing some of the things that he was saying, I'm not convinced so much that he's really into Kristen.
Yeah.
I feel like what he likes about her is her ability to have a lot of patience with him
Hmm.
and be willing to put up with him.
Okay.
And I think that's has been what has made him try.
Okay. Gotcha.
I I I do not think that he's really into her. I think he's into her strength and trying.
So I'm gonna go back to the beginning of the episode because she sat down with his sister-in-law. And his sister-in-law, I liked her because she's pretty much saying, yeah, when I first met him, we were bumping heads too because of him being so like, what did she say? He's being contrarian or something like that.
Mhm.
But I like that the sister-in-law just tried to add a perspective and didn't try to force Kristen to see things her way and try to be helpful, even if it wasn't like necessarily helpful to the situation. But I like that she at least affirmed what Kristen is feeling and by letting her
Mhm.
know that she had felt it too. And then they go to the Dr. Pepper thing. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just thinking when she sat down with him, just that must have been an interesting dynamic where you like marry someone
Hmm.
and then, their sibling is like extreme on certain things and it affects you. But they must have found a way to make it work. And it is different when it's your in-law
Yeah.
versus your spouse.
Yeah. Like she said, we've, made some types of adjustments because, he was babysitting the daughter.
Mhm.
Yeah. So he was already like around them a lot. And so I understand why she made some of those changes, but she's like, we're still using diapers, like we're not changing our whole life. So maybe that gave Kristen the idea that, hey, you don't have to change everything, but also he's living with her. So I don't know. But I was gonna go to there sit down with Dr. Pepper because Dr. Pepper, Dr. Pepper, because I love that she brought up the business because that's something that was brought up and wasn't really
Mhm.
resolved for us either as the audience. So I'm really happy that she brought it up. And I think he provided a little bit more clarity on what was the problem for him. So he was saying the fact that she would even buy a house for cheap that other people could have bought for cheap. So she's taking away inventory from people who don't have a lot of money anyway. And then she's like upping the price on it. So I see his point still. That's all I'll say. I can see his
I think you can have a point on something, but I don't know if that like if I have the choice between wow, I've really found my person,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
versus this like bigger picture point, I think for Kristen, it's like why are you letting that be such a thorn in what like our beautiful future could be. So I understood what Dr. Pepper was saying. Like you can't put all of that on her
Mhm.
in terms of like this is a dream of hers. They both can exist at the same time because individuals, and he even called himself out on it. Like you can't go around putting the burden on individuals when it's like a societal issue. Capitalism is an issue. Like we're all
We
in the
can't get
system.
yeah.
Yeah, like if that is the case, every individual home buyer is contributing really to the problem. You go buy a home, cheap or not, but most people will sell for a profit. No one is short selling their home unless their hand is forced through like a foreclosure or something. So I get his point. However, you've made it to 41. And if you really want to be married, I don't understand. This kind of goes back to the point of like, I don't think he's that into Kristen. This is one of the reasons I think. But
Hmm. I will say if I were Mitch, which I'm not, I don't know if I might maybe identify a little bit more with Kristen, but I definitely am in between them, right?
mhm,
So I completely get where he's coming from. And I
Mhm.
think if I'm 41 and I meet someone who wants to flip houses and I'm Mitch, and that's something that I'm very convicted about, because to me that is a conviction that he has, then Kristen isn't the person for me. That doesn't mean what Kristen wants to do is the worst thing on the planet, but I I probably wouldn't be able to move forward, the person who I am with, the person who I'm aligned with, doing something that ethically is just completely wrong to me. So I think
Mhm.
when they had the moment where it's like, okay, well, you guys have to decide if this is the person for you, if that's something you can live with. I think
Mhm.
Mitch needs to understand that that's not something he can live with, and both of
Mhm.
them can be valid. Like, two people can be right. I don't think it's fair to Kristen that he stay with her and then put the burden on her when all she wants to do is like make a living for herself, you know? But I do see that there are ethics that are questionable there, you know? Like, you
Mhm.
have um this money to buy this house, that might be all this family has, and now you're taking it so that you can make a profit. Like, if I were them, I would get divorced. Like, that's the solution to me, because neither one can he can't live with his conviction and put that burden on her, but she can't give up her dream just so she could be with him. So yeah, I just don't think they're a good match. And to me, that one issue is enough to separate. Like, forget everything
I
else. To me, that's an issue to separate on.
well, I think it's that issue plus he brings up when they get back home that he has been holding back
Mhm.
on certain things, even in just like the day to day and the way that they're living.
Yeah,
So
sorry. I thought about him eating that food and slurping it up. That was so disgusting. I was like, geez. She said, have you always eaten like that? And I haven't noticed. Like, golly. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
yeah, I think it's that plus the other, I guess, lifestyle changes that he's going to be expecting her to make,
Yeah.
which for me just compounds it because it's like, all right, you already, and this is reasons why Kristen should say no, but like you already maybe have to be forfeiting or dumbing down your dreams, whatever, plus your day to day as well. So
Mhm.
I feel like Mitch has a long list of convictions or things that he feels so strongly about. Fine, fine, but be upfront with her.
Mhm.
And I understand he didn't wanna lay it on all too thick all on day 1, but I really was not here for him being like, "Oh, well, I haven't even shown you the half of it."
Right.
No,
Okay, Lindy.
no,
Yeah.
no, so that part I did not like. I was just like, I wish you would be if you're gonna feel a way about her using certain things around the home or make her no one should be walking on eggshells at home.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, one or the other. If he had asked me to change my whole home life, I would be getting a divorce. If he had asked me if it was just the house thing, I would probably be out. Just because you don't want there to be a conflict with how you make your money. Like, I think in an ideal situation, if you have a spouse, like, you guys want to work towards certain financial goals, and at least be on the same page about working towards those goals and how you get there and things like that. But it clearly isn't possible for them. And then he has the conversation with her sister. And her sister clearly took it the way that Kristen took it, because she was like, I think women just want to show up the way that they feel best. Like, the sister had a lot to say in response to him talking about how he wanted a more earthy look. And he really thought it was a compliment. I don't know, like, we should stop telling people what compliments are for them, I think. Like, just because it's a compliment for you doesn't mean it's a compliment for me. Because I enjoy doing this stuff, you know? She doesn't even wear that much makeup anyway. It's very minimal.
so that is also what seals the deal for me of
He don't like
I
her.
I don't think I don't even know if it's that he doesn't like her. I think he likes her.
Yeah.
He's just not that into her.
Yeah.
He really had, I feel like, his organic reaction up front, but because he was in this process, he was getting in his feelings. He was like, I really, really, really want to try. But now him bringing up this makeup thing, he's acting like she's walking around with a beat face and
Okay, every
hair
day.
straight to the gods. No.
He's acting like she's Alexis. That's how he's acting.
And so it's like, okay, because this girl put on eyeliner,
And mascara. Yeah.
which is just so shocking to me that he would articulate that to the sister when he had so much to say about wearing a shirt.
I'm surprised he even noticed. Like I feel like a lot of guys I know, they don't really know when you put a no makeup look on, they think you're natural. From what I've seen, they're like, "Oh, I want people to look more like this girl who looks natural and she has a full face of makeup." They just don't know that. But the fact that he notices, I don't know, maybe he's seen her putting it on or something like that.
I think he's seen her putting it on. And I think you watching someone put them, it's like, oh, okay, they did put on
And when she
makeup.
washes it off at night. So you're right, you're right,
Yeah, but even still, it's not like she's transforming herself to a different person. When she's filming, she's comfortable with filming without makeup on. She
right.
doesn't look that
Yeah.
different. And so I don't know that for me, I just feel like that's just one more thing. Because I don't know how he thought she was ever going to take it in a good way. And
Mm.
how you started off was by telling this woman, and I don't know if I'm that attracted to you.
He doesn't know how to read the room. He's 41, but like as far as social cues go, I think he's like 8.
Yeah, you can't start off that way. Now this woman is questioning everything about herself. And it's like, oh, well, also I don't want you to wear makeup either. It's it's
Right.
all it's all just way too much. I don't know how he thought that that was gonna go well.
Mhm.
Obviously the sister is gonna take her sister's side, and
And
then
you
it's
think she's
also
not gonna tell her?
contradictory to his reaction to the mother. So that was the other thing where I'm like, this guy's not that into her because he was just losing it for over the mom who
Mhm.
was
Beat.
more dolled up
Yeah.
and beat than Kristen was on her own wedding day.
Exactly. Her mom
So
looks like the bride, makeup wise.
you're not that into her,
Mhm.
and that's fine. But I feel like he's creating a lot of confusion,
Mhm.
and he likes the fight that she has for her
Mm.
in terms of like the marriage and trying to keep them together and her being so understanding. I think
Mhm.
that's what he's yet to even really give her what I think are good compliments about herself.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
even when was it Dr. Pepper was like, well, say something nice or something.
yeah. Yeah, speaking of Dr. Pepper, so later on, actually right before Dr. Pepper, so when they were at the beach, the one thing that I didn't like, but I also understand, so I'm not saying that she shouldn't have done this, because she was really pissed and her sister had just told her before, but it seemed like she was taking Morgan's approach a little bit, like, oh, but I'm gonna blow up. I got something coming for him,
When she
like
was talking to Morgan, I was like, no, do not tell this girl
that do not.
anything.
Yes, anytime anybody's doing anything with Morgan or Morgan like, I'm like, absolutely not. I cannot co-sign because yeah. So that's the only thing I didn't like was like, oh yeah, something's brewing. I'm gonna blow up. We're not there yet, but I'm gonna blow up. And then Morgan supporting it
She's
because
like,
she don't know no better herself. That's the only thing that I didn't like. But I do understand just the level of pissed off that she was. So I can see why
mhm.
that was something that she was doing. But I don't know that this was, I put that, I don't know that this was the conversation to have in the group setting because it was giving passive aggressive, but I'm gonna call you out and like it was a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because they kind of all got married together that they have this level of comfortability. Well,
Mhm.
Lindy and Miguel don't, but the rest of them, I think that they do. But in real life, that would be so bizarre to be having that type of conversation with
Amongst
your
friends.
spouse, or like you tell a friend, or at most you'd be like, oh girl, he tried it, and then I have to tell you later.
Yes.
But never there in person.
And while we're talking, like it was a lot. And then but I do respect Kristen for the rest of the episode. So Dr. Pepper comes out and she's like, "Are you very attracted to her?" And he's like, "I'm attracted to her." And I'm like, oh, you couldn't even just say yes if he had to say, because he didn't mean it. He would have been lying if he said he was very attracted.
He's not that into her. Wait, we skipped something.
What?
Alexis being the one to open the whole conversation up.
Yes.
Once
And
again,
then
messing
Justin
it up.
having her back. Yeah, I heard it. I had heard that she said that.
Both of y'all, be
Oh
quiet.
my gosh, I
Sorry.
know. Yeah, Alexis, like when Ben and Morgan were having the very brief moment on the rooftop too, she was like, "Ben, how do you feel about that?" And I felt some type of way. I'm like, "Well, don't ask him how he felt when you started it." Like, don't, you know.
Here
But
you
yeah,
go.
Alexis, it seemed messy. But again, I think you sent me a voice note. You were like, "Did the producers make her do that?" Because
Somebody told her something. It was so out of place and so random. Like we
in
kind of
specific.
knew it's so specific. Like we knew why Kristen was feeling away as the audience because we saw the footage. Even if did Kristen tell her to say something? I want to know how did Alexis, how did you get around to bringing this up in front of the whole group? Because even if Kristen told me, I would never.
Be the one to bring that up, especially something that's such a sore topic for women, like because of society, but like your looks and someone not being attracted to you, and now you're married with this person and she's like slept with this person, like, it's a lot.
All right.
um
Sorry, I got a sidetrack,
no,
but
no, it's fine. But yeah, Dr. Pepper asked if he was very attracted, and he said, I mean, I'm attracted to her, and felt like he felt like he was being put on the spot. And Dr. Pepper's like, "Oh, I didn't know you wasn't gonna say yes. That's why I asked." That's why y'all need to be watching the footage, Dr. Pepper. But yeah, I loved that Kristen spoke up as Dr. Pepper was saying, "Oh, I think there's like enough attraction." And Kristen's like, "I don't want that." And nobody wants enough attraction. Like she said, "I want to walk in the room and this person is excited to see me. I want this person to like think about me in a certain way." And I'm like, "Yes, Kristen, you absolutely deserve someone who's like happy for you." And then Dr. Pepper, happy to see you. And Dr. Pepper apologized. She's like, "I don't need an apology from you guys. I need an apology from him." I I respect it. Because Kristen, even this episode has been saying, "Oh, I think like we're really good. I think we're in a
mhm.
good place," which was confusing, super confusing to me that she was saying that in this same episode when we've seen what has happened over the last few weeks. Even though they could tell that they're not a good long-term couple, they're still saying, "Oh, I think we're at a good place in their marriage." Anyway, so I'm really glad that she had that moment where she's like, "This ain't it, and I don't want it to be it." So yeah.
Yeah, you said she was gonna be hard to read. She's just all over the place.
Right.
And I
I
think
was
it's because
very
she
confused.
just doesn't want to throw in the towel, but between the housing thing and their different views,
Mhm.
the whole attraction and makeup thing,
Yeah.
and then him having this attitude of, like, not wanting to be controlled and her just having to walk on eggshells,
Yes.
no.
Him not wanting to be controlled, but also wanting to be in control of certain things that she does. Like the Starbucks thing. Girl, if you don't go get your iced latte or whatever it is you're getting.
Something that I wrote down was he
Mhm.
said that he wanted to be like, "Oh, will it ruin our marriage if you come with your plastic cup?" No, but it would make me so proud of you if you and to have you
Yes.
by my side, and it's like, you should be proud to have her by your side regardless, but
Period.
I think that goes back to a difference in values,
Hmm.
whatever's important to, each individual person, but
Yeah.
you should be proud to have her as your wife regardless of her lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah, he
Absolutely.
need to just find somebody who's also picking up trash on the beach to like,
Speaking of
help
who he should find, when Alexis and Justice said he needs somebody,
from
they said he
Boulder,
needs somebody with dirty feet. I said, you know what?
specifically
End the
from
episode.
Boulder.
End the episode right now. Lifetime, cut it right now.
Shout
But
out to
that
the
was so
people
funny.
in Boulder, Colorado. It's actually a really nice place. I don't know why they would shade in
Don't,
Boulder.
don't they have like expert gymnastics there or something like that in Boulder?
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, like, at the base of mountains all around it.
Mhm.
It's gorgeous. It's, like, hippie, but not in a dirty foot kinda way.
Oh my god, and the fact that they said it at the same time. I was like, they've either had they've had these discussions behind closed doors before, because there's no way that out of nowhere y'all would just both say dirty feet.
I
um
wish y'all would have that same type of energy for each other or just be open and honest and call it quits and
just
be like,
be
"We
friends.
good
Yeah.
friends," and that's it.
It's
Don't make us struggle through this
It's giving
watching
friendship
this.
vibes. Well, we have a few more weeks to go. I'm looking forward to the cabin episode because it seems like it's going to expose some things from Lindy and Lindy and Miguel, where he's like, "I'm not having it. Nope, don't do that no more."
I wanted to ask you before we wrap up,
Yeah.
though, what did you think about Devon's vibe? Like, it's our first time seeing him on, so you gave your thoughts about Dr. Pia, so what are you feeling with Devon?
Okay, so if they bring him on for moments like Justin and Alexis, I'm actually here for it. It did make me cringe a little bit when he referenced his wife, because I was like, oh no, we're on the other side of it. We know what had happened. Like, well, we don't know all that happens, but we know that they're not together anymore. So yeah, it did make me cringe a little bit. I I was okay with the work that he did. If they bring him back next season to do something like that, I'd be okay with it. Also, if he doesn't come back ever again, I'd be okay with it. So it's not like Dr. Pia, I'm like, okay, I see a spot for her there, and I think she needs to be recurring. But for him, I can take it or leave it. I think he did a great job last night, and if he doesn't come back to do any more good jobs, I think we'll still be fine.
Okay,
What did
yeah.
you think?
His energy is just very different
Yeah,
than the other
positive,
experts.
very
Yeah, like,
positive.
he gives me motivational speaker, like, he was just so amped in
Yeah,
his delivery,
yeah,
and so it gave me, like, yeah, one-on-one advice, but just, like, motivational
yeah,
type speaking. So yeah, I liked it. If he comes back, that'll be fine.
yeah,
Uh, please leave Megan Good out of this. Leave our girl out of this. Just give
yeah.
your thoughts and your advice. I understand they were married for 10 years, so it's
Mhm.
natural for it to come up. I'm just being funny. But
Yeah, I think he
um,
maybe brought
yeah.
like a sense of warmth. So maybe what we were noticing with Alexis is like it does seem like he tried to create a very like warm space for them. So
Oh,
yeah.
and she definitely felt it.
Goodbye. All right, guys, please check out our podcast anywhere where podcasts are played, Girlfriends and Goals podcast. And if you have not subscribed yet, please go ahead and do that now. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.